Hi, my name's Phil. I enjoy talking about politics, and the topic for today is what happens if Article 50 were just unilaterally revoked. Theresa May just revoked it. So, let's go through the thinking process here before we discuss what the actual consequences would be. The apparent strategy at the moment for Theresa May is running down the clock in the belief that if she puts her deal up for a vote, which she did, and it lost by a lot, that she puts it up again in a couple of weeks' time, which is 2 weeks later than she's supposed to be doing it, by the way, because that's, again, her delaying a vote. And it's rejected again, and she goes, all right, I'll have another think about it, and goes off and comes back at the end of March and says, hey, do you want to vote on my deal again? It's either that or no Brexit, in the belief that Parliament will then go, oh, it's better than no Brexit, we'd better vote for it. That is the trajectory she seems to be on. But it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't follow logic. And there's three reasons for this. First of all, Theresa May is a believer in the EU, at least in terms of the economic and political influence it grants the UK. So as such, actually pushing for even her deal when there is a political way out seems strange. Secondly, Theresa May seems absolutely desperate to keep her party united, but her deal would lead to an inevitable trajectory whereby we end up forming a customs union with the EU. Now, this, of course, would certainly get the approval of Parliament and you know, people in the country in general. However, the ERG will be dead set against it. So even if she gets her deal through, she is still on course this year for causing a split in her party. Because as soon as, you know, if the deal goes through, that's the easy bit. That's just a withdrawal agreement. Then there's the actual proper negotiations for our final relationship with the EU and indeed the wider world. And the ERG aren't going to be happy about anything that we come up with. So she's just going to be kicking the can down the road for a little bit longer there. And it is only going to be a little bit longer. And the other thing is, even if she does put up her deal for a final vote, 2 days to go, 27th of March, entirely possible. Is she thinking that that MPs are going to vote for it? I don't. First of all, she's making certain assumptions there, but I don't think they're even realistic assumptions. Think about it this way. The ERG will block it. There's about 80 Tory MPs who will just vote down this deal. They want no deal. They actively want no deal. It's not just that they think this deal is a bad deal. They actively want us to vote this deal down at that point. Then the DUP will, of course, vote it down. Similar thing for them, actually. I don't think they're all that bothered about no deal at all. So that means she needs at least 90 opposition MPs to vote in favour of it. Now, she had some vote in favour of it the first time round. She may get an increased number voting for it this time round. But I still don't believe she'll get enough, because from the opposition's point of view, let's say you were a dead set Remainer. And yes, you accept the fact that voting it down at the 11th hour like that is basically accepting no deal. Well, apart from the fact there's a certain dread fascination for the no deal, because you think to yourself, well, at least those smarmy bastards over there are going to be faced with the consequences of what they've been pushing for, and everyone will see them for what they are a year later and see, you know, a no-deal Brexit for what it is a year later. There's another aspect to it as well. If we leave with her deal, we're probably going to have pretty close alignment with the EU. So it will massively cushion the fall, the economic fall. And what damage it does do to our economy, all the hardline Brexiteers will blame on the fact that we didn't leave with no deal. So they'll carry that on. But at the same time, there'll be no impetus for us to rejoin because we'll have cushioned the fall a bit. Whereas if we were to crash out, it would be evidence to everyone with a brain a year later how bad a decision it was, which can then pave your way to eventually rejoining it. So there is a certain appeal there. I'm not saying that that is my view, but I'm not saying it's not. There is a certain appeal there. So plus, of course, for the opposition MPs, it also means that for the next general election, Theresa May will have basically rendered her party unelectable. So there's that as well. So it just doesn't make sense for Theresa May to be going down this path. So people think she's up to something. I keep thinking she's got to be up to something cunning. There's a cunning plan in there somewhere. So one cunning plan inevitably occurs, that the Prime Minister is running down the clock so that the very last minute it gets voted down, and with no time to do anything normal. And she can say to Parliament, right, well, no one voted for no deal. You've voted not to have this deal. That basically means you want no Brexit. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to amend the European Union Withdrawal Act, which, of course, I can do with a provision in it for that. And I'm going to revoke Article 50. We're not going to have a Brexit after all, because you clearly don't want one. And she might take that view. Now, I don't believe in that scenario for a second, but let's go through the process. So one, Theresa May, gets no changes to a deal, of course, lets Parliament vote for it in 2 weeks' time. They reject the deal again. That part's almost certain, of course. Then she goes away to try and work something out with the EU, comes back with the same deal on the 27th of March after the EU summit, because she'll say, well, there's an EU summit coming up. That's the brilliant time to do negotiations. Comes back, and that's 2 days before Brexit Day. In the meantime, Parliament's done nothing to stop her, so she continues her tactic of running down the clock. Now, we don't know whether that would happen or not. We'll find out on Thursday. MPs vote for a final time. So we're on course for a no-deal Brexit. Jacob Rees-Mogg cracks open another crate of champagne, just so he can show he's a man of the people. And then Theresa May stands up in front of Parliament and says, I'm cancelling Brexit. So there you go. So I don't believe in this outcome, but let's look at it. So what's the legal and political consequences here? So legally, she absolutely has the authority to do it. The European courts last year agreed that the UK had the right to unilaterally revoke Article 50 at any time before the UK leaves the EU. And it's not that we come back as a member. We are a member now on the same conditions. It's like as you were. We've pissed everyone off for 2 years, but beyond that, it's all, Two, now this is the really critical bit here. This is what's got some people thinking, I think. So the exit date given in the European Union Withdrawal Act has a provision in it that can be changed at any time by a Minister of the Crown without referring to Parliament. Now, ordinarily, of course, amending legislation, there's a set process for it. It's not an unusual thing to happen. It happens all the time. Someone, puts an amendment before the House. The House debates it, votes on it. If it votes in favour of the amendment, goes to the House of Lords. They debate it, vote on it. If they agree, it can go for the royal assent to be, amended. That takes a certain amount of time, but that's the normal way to do it. You couldn't do that with only 2 days left. No way near enough time. But, that is the process. So it seems odd that there's a provision specifically for this piece of legislation that allows a Minister of the Crown to just amend it. Just like that. That seems odd. Odd to put something like that in. Unless, of course, Parliament at the time was thinking to themselves, we reckon that this is going to play out exactly like this, get to the last couple of days, and then we reject it, and then we're going to need a way of cancelling it bloody quick so that we can at the very least ask for an extension from the EU, if not cancel it altogether. So the fact that that provision is in there means Parliament are expecting something to happen at the last minute. Not that we crash out with no deal, but we're not accepting the deal we have, and we need to give ourselves a way of quickly, without going through the normal parliamentary process, either extending Article 50 or cancelling Article 50. And that provision allows for that. There is no other reason for it to be in there. It's not normal. But I don't know of any other legislation where anything like that exists. But of course, I'm not a legal expert. The third thing is that the referendum, of course, was advisory only. So the government has no legal right to put in place those results either. Parliament alone decides legislation in this country. So legally, not a problem. But how would it play out politically? Well, this is where the fun and games would happen. So the ERG would be fuming, but they'd be unable to do anything to stop her until December because of their own stupidity last December when they decided to call a vote of confidence in her leadership. That made her bulletproof for 12 months. That being said, the divisions in her party would rip right open. And it's not even like she'd have a lot of support, because even on the Remain side of her party, I don't think they would like what she's just done. You know, even though she's got the legal power to do it, it just doesn't sit well having your Prime Minister stand up after pissing everyone around for so long and unilaterally do that. It's like, it's a betrayal of everyone, really. In addition, although she could easily resist calls to step down as leaders, those actions could see another general election being called, at which point you'd think she would step down. And even if not, at some point she is going to be deposed, and there would be the fear that whoever replaced her would just restart Article 50 anyway. So Theresa May doing this wouldn't actually solve the problem. She'd also be making the Conservatives public enemy number one for the next election, not only guaranteeing that the party would lose the general election, but actually meaning that their presence in Parliament would be small even by the standards of an opposition party. They could be not exactly wiped out, but they could be decimated. And then there's the way it would be seen by the public. So, although polls suggest a nice hefty gap between those who would now vote Remain were there another referendum and those who would not, it's 60 to 40. Even if there ended up being a slight error, because you always get errors with polls, there was an error with the first referendum poll. That was because, you know, they said it would be tight and it was tight, and they thought it would go in favour of Remain, ended up going the other way. That's your small error there. But in a gap this size, you ain't got an error that big. But that being said, there are people who say that the referendum should be respected, even if they voted or would vote the other way. Nobody is saying that they want the Prime Minister to ignore the normal democratic processes, or even the abnormal ones, because that's what a referendum is, just because the result might not be what they wanted. There are even people, though we did some polls, because, you know, the number of people who would now vote Remain has steadily gone up over time as people have sort of seen the realities of the situation. Now, last summer, there was a point where the polls were suggesting that people would now have voted Remain. But the polls also suggested that were another referendum organised, that may not be the result, because some people would be outraged at the fact that the first referendum... Some people just have it in their minds, well, there was a referendum, we should accept that result, come what may. And even some people who would like to Remain would vote Leave just to make sure that that referendum, you know, the people say, was respected. So you may, you know, you may well get that again in spades if the Prime Minister unilaterally tried to do something. You know, there'd be a lot of outraged people. I mean, after all, if you're going to ask what people think in a referendum and then ignore the result, well, what was the point of the referendum in the first place? So doing this wouldn't even delight people who wish to remain in the EU. Speaking for myself, and I can only speak for myself, I wouldn't be at all happy about the Prime Minister doing that. I'm not hoping she does that at all. I think it'd be awful, even though she's got the legal right to do it. Without a majority vote in Parliament at least, but for the majority of the population who don't understand how parliamentary democracy works, even that's not enough. You actually do need a people's vote. There are also plenty of people saying that something like this would cause massive damage to our political system. Now, people saying this all the time. It's the same thing with Brexit here, saying how undemocratic it is to actually have a people's vote. You what? I think it's undemocratic not to ask the people how they wanted to leave the EU in the first place, and they didn't. So anyway, there we go. But I can hardly imagine the fury of people were she to actually do that. Then there's the EU itself. Now, although it can't block May from doing this, and it actually wants us to remain, they'll also know that carrying that action out unilaterally would mean that at some point Article 50 is just likely to be triggered again, because it doesn't bring closure to anything. And then the whole hideous process begins again. Now, if I were them, I'd prepare for this by continuing to try and entice UK businesses to transfer over to the continent or Ireland. In other words, I'd still keep up preparations for an eventual no-deal Brexit and just work on the assumption that all this is an extension to that process. It would also mean putting up with Nigel Farage, so that would be a massive disappointment as well. Or maybe it wouldn't, I don't know. I know he's made a new political party which has been accepted by the Electoral Commission in the UK. And given that it's going to put seats out across the country, I am wondering who stumped up the money for that. That'll be an interesting question for the future. But anyway, What I don't know is how the registration would work for the EU. The EU elections, were we to remain, are not in the far future. Would he be allowed to stand for the European elections? I don't know. But anyway, we'll worry about Nigel Farage later. He may have nothing to worry about at the moment. So, it wouldn't close the Brexit story. It would split the Conservative Party. It would enrage much of the UK public, dismay the wider world and infuriate Parliament. If she really wants to cancel Brexit, there are easier ways to do it without pissing off literally everyone in the world. So although there are aspects of Theresa May's actions that don't really add up, they are still the most likely explanations for what she's doing. We'll just have to play the waiting game to find out. I mean, to cancel Article 50 on anything like a permanent basis would need majority support in the country and major support in Parliament. And the only way to establish these is to issue another referendum, not to act unilaterally, only to have someone else reverse it a few months later. So May would need to get behind a people's vote, but whatever she's really up to, and it may well be letting the country slide out the EU without a deal, she's certainly not gearing up to support another referendum. There has been talk of another amendment which would promise support for May's deal in return for a public vote on that deal. However, it can't be passed in the Commons without either Jeremy Corbyn or preferably Theresa May getting behind it. Ideally both, I suppose. Then it would be certain to pass. But Jeremy Corbyn won't, because he's fine with things as the way they are. We'll leave the EU on our current trajectory, which he wants, and he'll get a boost in the next general election. Theresa May is unlikely to go for it because it won't meet with the approval of the powerful ERG lobby in her party, so backing it will split her party. So I'm afraid, although it might be being reported in the media, it's just one of those amendments that will go nowhere unless Parliament as a whole abandons party lines and grasps the nettle. But although there's been a few signs of Parliament, you know, shaking its fist at the government, they haven't really done anything this united. And I don't get the feeling it's going to happen. But as I said, there is a debate this Thursday that the government tried to get rid of and they couldn't. So there is going to be a debate about the way Parliament wants to proceed this Thursday. And although I strongly suspect it'll be the same no overall majority for any outcome, and even a small majority for a particular outcome it's not binding. None of these votes are going to be binding. So, you know, the Prime Minister, if it was a small majority, could just ignore it anyway. In which case, we're back to square one. But if it was a lot of Parliament, if Parliament as a whole, well, not as a whole, because we know the ERG won't, but if a large majority of Parliament decided to say, right, this is what needs to happen now, then the government couldn't ignore that. But we'll see on Thursday. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, click the bell notification, and until next time, I'll see you later.